It's yet another time that we get to have a talk here at Now Tell Us, a podcast where we have guests come and tell us stories, inspire us, educate us on a subject, and always we are having some great time. I'm your host, Anthony Mwerore. Today we have a guest that is going to tell us about impacting the world and reshaping history. His name is Sean Carlton, and he's going to be here shortly. But before he comes, I would like to ask you to please share this episode with all your friends. If you have a question, ask. We'll be glad to answer. If you have any comment to make on this podcast, we really appreciate feedback. And so we thank you in advance. And now, why don't you join me as we go to meet our guest today to talk about impacting the world and reshaping history? Here we go. Hi, Sean.
Good morning.
Morning to you. How are you?
I am doing real good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Good to see you and happy year on our show.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you allowing me to come on.
Yeah. Um, where in the world are you at this moment?
Well, I live in Iowa,
Okay.
which is kind of given away by my shirt there. I live in Iowa. I live in this town called Ames. It's in central Iowa. It's a college university town. I've been here since I was a kid, so almost my entire life. And yeah, so that's where I've been since I was 8 years old, and that's where I continue to live at 41 years old.
Oh, that's cool. And yes, your shirt, I saw black in Iowa.
Hmm.
Yeah, anybody could have worn any shirt of any kind. So I had to ask. Now, tell us about your shirt. What's behind it? Black in Iowa.
Um, Well, I think a couple years ago there was a kind of a grassroots organization that was built up in Iowa that was about being black in Iowa. Iowa has a very small black population. I think it's
Mhm.
no, I don't even know it, but it's about 8% and maybe even less than that. Um, and it's just it was about just being kind of proud of who you are and in your background. And Iowa is kind of famously slash infamously known as not being a great state to live in if you are black. It's just for a lot of reasons, it's just not really considered to be a place to go
Hmm.
to really raise a family or to really kind of live and work. It has, you know, populations of all kinds, black or otherwise, that come through, especially in this town because of the university. But once they get their degrees, they leave and they go back wherever home is. So they don't really stay and make a home in Iowa. I think a lot of it kind of sprouted from that. It's like, make a life in Iowa, stay in Iowa, and you know, kind of be known to be black in Iowa. I guess. I mean, it was just kind of. I think it was kind of like an outgrowth of the Black Lives Matter movement.
Okay. And has it any significant to do with your present wearing it? Have you been maybe through some issues that made you just want to uh, revert back to that? And yeah.
Well, no, it was no. I'm not really wearing it today for any particular reason other than just I just wanted to wear it actually, and I thought maybe it'd be kind of a cool idea to do it on the show, just
Okay.
kind of like to rep being black and rep being in Iowa too. So I think that's another thing too. Most people don't really associate Iowa with being black. It's just kind of known as being a very 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 white state. But no, it was just kind of like I guess when at the time I bought it, I kind of felt a certain allegiance to the organization and to the idea and the philosophies behind it. and so that's why I really bought it. And but today, no real particular reason, just because I wanted to.
Oh, that's cool. And I see represented by Africa, the map of Africa. And I know
Hmm.
we talk about African Americans,
Yeah.
but in personally, are you linked to Africa in any way? Just curious, anyway.
Personally, I mean, no, by heritage only, only
Okay.
by heritage. So no.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So here we are, and we are glad that you're here. Can we maybe know what it is that you do on a day-to-day basis?
Well, on a day-to-day basis, I kind of just live a normal life. I still work a job, full time, and I have kids, that I have 50-50 custody with my ex-wife. And I just sort of live the life of a normal dude, apart from the fact that I run two podcasts, and I have a publishing site that I'm building, and a closely related media company that is the Dark Age Media company. So really, I'm a like I said, pretty plain Jane normal guy, other than the podcasts and the media company.
And what the podcast about?
The first podcast is Fitness Reborn with Seann, which is obviously a fitness podcast where I engage people of all sorts of backgrounds who are related to fitness. So a
Mm.
lot of them are professionals, a lot of them are academics, but a lot of them are just kind of ordinary people who found fitness and found it to be a lifesaver. And I started this off as kind of like being like an adjunct to my fitness business that I once ran. I don't really run that anymore. And I thought, oh, this would be a cool thing. Like my clients can get into it. I can get into it. I can learn things. Everybody can kind of learn something. And I can meet new people and just kind of grow from there personally and professionally. And it just kind of took on a life of its own. I'm not really sure when it really started getting strong and became like a regular thing, but it was pretty quick. And yeah, and so now more than the fitness business, I'm focusing more on my media presence than anything. And the second one is the one I'm currently building. It's less established. It's the Dear DSM podcast. DSM is like an acronym for Des Moines, which is the capital city in Iowa. To those of you who don't know anything about Iowa,
Mm.
that's the capital city and the biggest city in Iowa. And that one kind of came about because I think a few years ago, right before COVID struck, I was in Des Moines. A friend of mine plays in bands. I was in Des Moines seeing his band, and I was out there. I was having a good time. I was having fun, and it just kind of dawned on me just how special and unique and talented this town really is, despite the lack of fanfare that it gets in relation to a lot of the other cities that are famously known for being in the Midwestern part of the United States, like Chicago. Everyone's heard of Chicago. Same,
Yeah, I've heard of Chicago ever since I was young and I was
right?
following the Bulls.
Right, right. So yeah, so Chicago, Chicago blues, Al Capone. Everybody knows Chicago,
Yeah,
but also like Minneapolis and St. Louis and Kansas City. These,
Texas.
yeah, exactly. So these cities get a lot more attention, I think, globally
Mm-hmm.
than Des Moines does. I don't think really anyone really talks about Des Moines outside of Des Moines, sadly, I feel like. But it's really a cool town. I thought maybe I'd start a podcast to kind of shine a light on how special this town really is, on like the
Mm.
people, its culture, and its history. And it's got a significant, since we're talking about Black people in Iowa, it's got a significant Black history to it that not a lot of people really know about, that I didn't know about until very recently, honestly.
Mm.
So yeah, there's a lot of potential gold nuggets there that you can unearth if you just go looking for it.
Oh yeah, and we will invite the people to go and look at it
Hmm.
somewhere in the program. But maybe even before we go there, I would like to maybe just have a clue. You don't just share on your own. You invite people, as you mentioned. What are some of the people that you've met that have made a big impact on you and maybe on those people who have been listening to your podcast?
Um, well, I think just right off the top of my head, I can think of this one gentleman who I interviewed a couple months ago. He's in Canada, and he's a gut health expert, like
Mhm,
metabolic health and that kind of stuff about autoimmune diseases and the types of food you eat and how it impacts your entire overall health. Um, I spoke with him, and he was a really interesting guy to speak to, and it seemed like I got a lot of good word feedback from his interview. And he runs his own podcast, and so his own podcast, I think, has seen an uptick. Not to kind of blow my own horn, but to see an
mhm,
uptick, at least from one person that I know, especially who has become an avid fan of him and his work. But he really kind of, I think, I don't think he necessarily told me anything I didn't already know, but he clarified a lot of things for me and how important it really is to kind of safeguard your metabolic health and how your metabolic health will bleed over into other things, especially things like autoimmune disorders, which I think is kind of like uh, it's kind of like a mystery, I think, autoimmune disorders in the medical world, because they don't really know what to chalk it up to a lot of times,
mhm,
I feel like. So, they just kind of sum it up to, as well as your immune system is attacking you. For some reason, it mystical field, no one really seems to know.
mhm,
But there's a few people out there like this man, who I will say Josh Deck is his name, Josh Deck. He's got a podcast out there called Reversible, all about gut health and metabolic health. So I'll give him a shout out right here. Check him out if you want to see him or if you want to hear from him. And yeah, no one gives you any real clear answers here. And I don't think he really gives you an answer per se, but he really kind of guides a light, or gives you a guiding light towards a direction that might actually help you with your autoimmune disorders if you have them. So he's one. And there's another one I spoke to, again, fairly recently. Her name is Phyllis Levitt. She wrote a book that's coming out here pretty quickly, but she's a mental health professional. She's a retired psychotherapist, and she talked about trauma and how trauma relates, or how trauma impacts you. But she went kind of a step further. She didn't talk about trauma on a personal level so much. She talked about it on a national level,
mhm,
national level, on the particularly relating to the United States, right? And how trauma has a lot to do with a lot of the divisiveness and the rancor that you see nationally, in this
mhm,
country, at least on a national level, and how, it's very reminiscent of how trauma works on an individual level as well. Like, you're just seeing it on a national stage. So that was interesting. And she's got another book out that's coming out here, I think, sometime this summer. But she's got previous books out, and she actually just became a contributor on my Substack account. So, if you want to find out what her books are, and if you want to kind of pre-order a book, the one that's coming out, check it out on the Substack account. But yeah, I think two of the biggest people I can think of right now would be them.
yeah, and now since you've mentioned Substack, maybe we can tell the people where they can find your Substack, even as we keep rolling.
Well, the Substack account it's on Substack. The publication is called Samo Lives. Samo is SAMO Lives on Substack. So it's a fledgling project that I've been working on for a couple months now. Yep, there it goes. And I'm always looking to expand. I upload all my podcasts on there. I'm looking for contributors. I'm looking for people who want to help me grow this thing. And yeah, it is the place to find all my work, everything I do.
Wonderful. Yeah, this thing is something that I've just started to hear about in the recent months. Substack. I have
Mhm.
actually joined Substack about 2 months ago. I see
Yeah.
you've been there some months before I
Mhm.
was there. Uh, is this the first place that you've been online, site wise, or this is just where you're beginning on Substack?
It's just where I'm beginning on Substack. I've had other sites on the web.
Yeah.
I've had websites that, I kind of like threw together myself as best I could, or I paid someone a reasonable amount of money to build it for me.
Hmm.
And, they were usually fitness related sites of some kind. But they're both defunct now. And so this one, the Substack account is really like, it's not a fitness website. It's
Yeah.
just like, it's a publication where I have things on there that I think are helpful and relevant, and just kind of things that I think are just kind of reflective of my personality. Like I have things on there that have nothing to do with fitness or nothing to do with the city of Des Moines. I have blogs on there about I have a blog on there about John Coltrane, the saxophonist,
Hmm.
and his album of I'm blanking on the name of the album, but it was really about Coltrane and that particular album, which is considered like a crowning jewel of his career. So I have a blog about leadership and how how like Vito Corleone from The Godfather is a perfect leader, how
Hmm.
he embodies the perfect leadership skills and stuff like that. It's just really just kind of like spur of the moment kind of organic ideas I had, like this would be fun to write about, that kind of thing. But
Hmm.
I also have things that are really more real world related and stuff like that, like my podcast and contributions from Phyllis as well too. So it's really just my first foray into the Substack world.
Okay. And now, since we have people who are always interested in finding out new things and maybe experimenting new things, maybe you can share why choose Substack, even though you have the availability of other websites. You've built some websites, but then you have chosen Substack at this very moment. For someone who's listening there to consider going to Substack.
Uh, well, it was suggested to me honestly because I asked somebody who's a local web designer here in town, and I just kind of like I knew him from years ago. I just kind of like, hey, I'm kind of looking to do something like that, kind of similar to like Huffington Post kind of stuff, where it's like an online news site, right, or something like that, something to that degree. And he's like, well, here's some options here. And Substack was one of them. I looked into the other options. I can't think of what they are right now, but Substack was one of them. And I think what I like about Substack is that it's very user friendly. Like, and you can do all kinds of things with it. Like, I had my podcast, my fitness podcast, on another uploading platform, and I decided to take it from the uploading platform and just reroute it into my Substack account. And now I send it out from there, and I can do just about everything I could do on this other platform, and I can do it for essentially free. Whereas I was paying a separate fee for that other platform. And it's very user friendly and it's very versatile. You can do all kinds of things with it. And you can, like I said before, you can add other people onto it. So if you want to grow it, you can have like other people contribute to it with their own material, you know. I think it's just a really neat kind of platform, and it kind of opens up an entire world if you want it. And like not everybody really wants that. If you want to just keep your podcast to be a podcast, then fine, but it works for that too. So it's however as simple and as complicated, as multi-layered as you want it to be.
Thank you for that. Now, I've actually done exactly what you've told us there. I have shifted my podcast to Substack in the recent past.
Yeah.
Now, for anyone who may be listening to this and you don't know what we are talking about, follow some olives. Oh, some olives. Some. How do you
Same,
pronounce
sa
it?
sa so it's like
Semo.
so
Semo.
it's like same-o. So it's like if you ask someone, "Hey, how's it going today?" and they go, "Same-o."
Semo. Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Life. Okay, on Substack, go
Mhm.
subscribe and then look what is happening around there, and then you can always get started with your own.
Yeah,
If you want to write a newsletter, if you want to do a podcast, is a good place that we can suggest you. And a good place would be to start on Sean's Substack platform. Go subscribe and yeah,
absolutely.
enjoy
Do
yourself. Yeah,
it.
just do it. Just do it. So uh, you say that you have been meeting with people because you know there is so much talent, so much richness and ambition in the world, and you became a facilitator in this with this podcast. Um, and you've told us of those examples that I asked of you, and a podcast, as you said before, when you started, the first one was a place to meet, connect with people. Have you, maybe, and I guess I've seen that you've done that with Levitt, have you collaborated on things? Have business ideas come out of meeting people on your podcast or things like that?
Well, yeah, to a certain degree. So, because I have these 2 podcasts and I've gotten pretty good at doing it, um, I am now in the position here where I'm helping others who wanna start their own podcasts.
Hmm.
I'm helping them kind of like navigate and shortcut the system or the process a little bit because I've done it for a while now. I've experimented with this, I've experimented with that. It's not complicated, but it can be kind of confusing and intimidating because you don't really know where you should really begin, right?
Hmm.
So I don't know if you can relate to that too, but I just kind of bumbled around a little bit until I actually kind of found, you know, a an even ground to walk on. I kind of like bounced around a little bit, but in terms of like actually business, you know, business connections here, not really so much, but I am making connections, and the connections will, in my hope, actually grow into actually being bigger connections and will kind of grow into being fostered our business connections in the future here. So right now I'm still like in the nurturing kind of phase here, nurturing, collaborating, and building. That's the other thing too. It's like I really emphasize the facilitator part. I want
Hmm.
to help. I want to help others kind of get to the point where I'm at now, where they can actually start to have the influence that I know they can have because I've seen what they have to offer.
And what are some of the things that you maybe could consider in the future, to those who are listening, that are going to help us impact the world in a positive way so that we can actually reshape history as we are talking about here?
So I would like to offer people kind of a format and a ground and a opportunity and a place where they can actually have a wide reach, a
Mhm.
much wider reach. Um, this is kind of goes back to the significance of not just podcasting, but digital media, independent media itself here. So it's one of those things that it's so wide open and so available to anybody who really wants it. But so many people, like I said before, they find the whole thing just kind of confusing and intimidating. And, there's those of us out there, like myself and maybe you, who are willing to just kind of like throw ourselves out there and see what really sticks. And, sometimes it picks up and sometimes it just kind of flails. But a lot of people I don't think are really like that. I think they kind of like the assistance if they can,
Yeah,
because they have something they want to say, they have something they have to offer, but they don't really know if this is really the place for them. They kind of have that imposter syndrome kind of take over them.
hmm,
And I've heard this before where it's like Yeah, I think it's a good idea. I think it'd be neat, but I don't really know. I mean, I don't know if anyone really even cares to hear what I have to say.
Mm,
It's like, well, you're already all over Facebook
yeah.
preaching your gospels here. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, well, why not kind of concentrate it into one area where you can have a much greater impact than just your personal profile on Facebook, with a podcast or a contributing author, contributing articles or something like that. You know, I just think, like, just going back to what you said before, like, there is so much richness and talent out there, but there's a lot of people who just don't really know where to start, and they don't see too many platforms that they think are very inviting, and are in searching for people who have things they want to offer, but you know don't really know, again, where to start.
Oh, yeah, yeah. So, as you are listening there, Sean is here to just show us how to go about getting started in the direction of impacting the world to
Yeah.
reshape history.
It sounds so grandiose there. I know, to say, well, you're going to reshape history, but I think in small bits you can just do just that. You just have to start somewhere,
Yeah.
And I don't know how you feel about it, but I feel like media, even digital media, is too much of a gated community,
Mm,
where we don't hear a lot from people who should get more of a spotlight than they really are. I mean, the media system, as we know it,
yeah.
the big media system is kind of a big conglomerate of maybe about a half dozen different companies who kind of control everything,
Mm-hmm.
and they have certain gatekeepers in place that restrict a lot of information that's out there too, and that bleeds over into a lot of other areas too. So it's become a very kind of closed society, and the work that we're doing here, i think is I think it's on par with being revolutionary, in the sense that we are now trying to maybe not break up something, but maybe just moving in a different direction here. And we're going to need followers, and we're going to need supporters, and we're going to need a lot more people to join us too, because a few people out there, it seems like podcasting is everywhere. It might seem that way because
Mm-hmm.
it's, you turn around, you find it everywhere you turn. But actually, most podcasts don't really last very long. They start, and within 6 months they're dead,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So
Mm-hmm.
if you got one that goes on a year or more, you've got something real special there.
Sure.
You've built a lot of momentum, you know? And
Mm,
that's a different thing.
mm. How long have you been podcasting yourself?
2 years.
2 years. Okay, great.
Yeah. So yeah, I
Really
started,
good one.
yeah, I'm coming up on 2 years here. I started in May of 2022.
That's wonderful. And you've got a future ahead of you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So, as you say, that there is a lot of gatekeeping, but we thank God for technology that has made it possible for us to just have our voice out there everywhere. And then now comes AI. What's your take on that?
Uh, Honestly, I've played around a little bit with AI,
Okay.
and some of the stuff it does is very neat, you know? And I can see how it would be something that would be useful, and something that would be a net positive. But as with any new technology, there's always a downside. I mean, the internet is great. I remember when the internet first got big.
Mm-hmm.
When you had dial up internet service, when
Yeah.
you hooked it into your phone line, and it
Mm-hmm.
made this really loud shrieking noise, and you were hooked into it, and it was a really neat thing. You can plug into your computer, you can tap into anything on the World Wide Web.
Yeah.
I remember when that got big. But then, as with anything that offers a new sense of freedom, there is a drawback to it. The internet can be dangerous, you know.
We,
cyberbullying. Um, you people getting into chat rooms, you don't know who you're really talking to,
yeah.
especially when they're kids. You know, there's always going to be a downside. I think AI probably is going to have more problems than a lot of the enthusiasts really see.
Mm,
But I think okay. I'll just end it right here. I think it's the jury's still out on AI. You know, I
hmm.
think we've yet to really understand it and see where it's really going to go. I played around with it a little bit. From what I've done, I kind of like it, just because I think it's neat.
Yeah.
But if you really kind of deep dive into AI and you really kind of extend everywhere it could potentially go, you know, and
So
you right, and you weave it more and more into the everyday lives of people. We already kind of have it with like Alexa and all that stuff. Um, it's going to be there are going to be cases where the there will be a negative impact of some kind, even if it's just kind of like kind of like a one-off problem. When cars became big, what happened then? Well, you had car accidents,
a lot of accidents. Yeah.
right? Cars became, but the more popular it became, the more car accidents you had. You know, it's kind of reminds me of a line out of Blade Runner. It's like when they were talking about replicants. It's like, replicants are like any other machine. They're either a benefit or they're a hazard.
Hmm.
So hopefully, we just hope that AI is more of a benefit than a hazard.
Yeah. Let's keep hoping. Let's keep. And we who have this opportunity to make a positive impact using it, let's not stay quiet. Let's just do what we can to
Yeah,
use it in a positive way.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So it's just like be hopeful, use it in a way that is positive and helpful,
Mm-hmm.
and but kind of keep your guard up.
Sure.
Realize that there could be a dark side to it as well.
Sure. Sure. Wow. So we'll see what the future holds. In general, as we are just about to sign off because our time is past. In general, what's your future perspective? Now, this is not focused only on AI, but on everything. What's your imagination of the future?
My imagination of the future. Okay, so my imagination of the future, I think, is one that's very kind of hopeful and bright. I think maybe that's me sounding a bit naive. Um, I think I'm naturally a very optimistic person, so I do tend to look at the brighter side of things rather than the darker, more pessimistic things. Um, but especially in terms, I think of what we're doing, I think that this this whole thing is primed to expand and to blow up, and it just takes more people to get into it to make it stronger. I think, for as much as technology is advanced, I think we have potential to advance even further in digital media, in AI. um I think we're actually trending in a better direction here. I think we're actually doing something that, on the whole, despite everything that's bad that's going on, despite like, you know, things like the war in Gaza, and now you hear like Iran has gotten involved. So now Israel is turning their attention on Iran, and the whole thing seems to be spiraling out of control. You know, just look at it like this: we just came out of the worst pandemic
Hmm.
in over 100 years. There was all sorts of doomsday nonsense when in the middle of COVID.
Hmm.
So much fear, so much death, so much panicking. And we lived that way for roughly 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
3, 4 years. We're still here.
We're here.
We're here.
Yeah.
A lot of people did die, but a lot of us survived it. A lot of us came out of it unscathed. We're still here. The world did not end. Some things did fall apart because of the COVID pandemic, but it was not the end. We're still here.
Sure.
You
So
know,
we'll keep going. We keep going.
right?
We keep going through all the seasons. Last words you could want to leave with the audience.
Last words leave with the audience.
Uh-huh.
Take action. Don't just sit around talking. Take action. If you have an idea and you think it's a worthwhile idea, whatever it is, don't just sit on it. Do something with it. You know, if you have a good idea and you actually want to make a difference, then you have to actually put your money where your mouth is. There's a lot of people out there there are a lot of good people that have good intentions, but they just don't do anything just because a lot of times they're scared. Going back to what we were talking about before, they are confused, they're scared, they don't know what to do, they don't have the guidance. But you got to take action.
That's cool. Take action and take action now,
Yes.
says Sean Carlton. Thank you very much, Sean, for coming to our episode today. We really thank you.
I
And I
thank
think,
you. Appreciate it.
yeah. As a reminder to all the listeners and the viewers, those who've been watching us or listening to us, even those who get to listen to us after we have been through the episode, uh, yeah, thank you for being with us and take action. And one of the actions that we encourage you to take right now is go to Substack and subscribe to Sean's Substack or Sean's publication on Substack. Yeah, the link is in the description. Just go there. Take action now. And that's about it for today. At Now Tell Us, we are really grateful for everything. Let's continue making an impact on the world, and let's shape history. Uh, this has been Now Tell Us. I have been your host, Anthony Morore, and together with our special guest today, Sean Carlton, we're saying bye for now.
Bye bye.
Bye.